Today, we are going to be discussing another component of CSEC French Paper 2, directed situations. Let's get right into it. Knowledge required for directed situations. This refers to things that you have to know how to do. So first, you have to be able to identify tenses and moods. You have to be able to or know how to ask questions, give commands, forbid or say it's forbidden, give apologies, and provide explanations. You also have to know how to congratulate someone, describe objects or persons, wish someone well, and also to thank someone. These things you need to know to prepare yourself for the directed situations component of CSEC Paper 2. Okay? Let's continue. So we're now going to go through all of these one by one. But as this list is a bit long, we're going to break down the lesson in 4 components. So this is going to be part 1. Let's continue. First, we are going to look at identify tenses and moods. Every situation contains a verb tense or mood that indicates when an action occurred, will occur, is occurring, etc. Therefore, it is important to identify the tense or the mood that the scenario or the situation requires you to use in your response. So this is very important. So you have to pay attention to the verbs being used in the situation. And that's going to tell you whether you need to use the past tense, the present tense, the future tense, conditional, etc. Now let's look at an example from CSEC 2016, the 2016 past paper. It says, you have found an item which a classmate had misplaced. Leave him a note saying where you found the item. The situation wants us to do what the situation is telling us to do. It says, leave him a note saying where you found the item. So, as the situation requires you to state where you found the item, it means that you need to use the past tense, because the word found is the past tense of find. So by looking at this, we know we need to use the past tense. Now let's look at an example of a response that we can give for the situation. J'ai trouvé ton portable sur le bureau du professeur. I found your cell phone on the teacher's desk. So this is one possible response that you can give for the situation. Let's look at another example of a situation. Now, this situation is from 2022. So from the 2022 past paper. It says, you are going to be late returning home from school. Write a note to your mother explaining why you will be late. So in this situation, it says that you are going to be late from school. So you're going to return home late. And the situation wants us to write a note to your mother explaining why you will be late. So the word will here is an indication that we need to use the future tense because it's referring to something that is happening in the future. Because you're not late yet, but you will be late. All right, you're going to be late, which is another indicator. Going to be. This is known as the immediate future, which is still the future tense. So we're talking about the future. Going to be late, will be late. Those are the key indicators that you need to use the future tense in your response. Now, let's look at an example of a possible response. Okay, now we have here, je vais rentrer tard parce que j'ai un projet scolaire à finir aujourd'hui. What that says is, I will return home late because I have a school project to finish today. So this is in the future tense, and we have fulfilled what the situation requires us to do. Because if you take a look back here, we were supposed to explain why you will be late. Why, explaining why you will be late. So in the response here, we have indicated that we're going to be late. In this case, if we focus on the translation here, I am going to get home late because I have a school project to finish. So here, there's an indication that you're going to be late, and also the reason is given why you are going to be late. Therefore, the requirements of the question or this given situation has been fulfilled. Let's move on. Now we're going to be looking at asking questions. If the situation requires you to ask a question, then ask the question. Pretty simple, isn't it? We're going to look at our first example here. This situation is taken from 2022's past paper, which says, your house guest leaves you a note asking for directions to a specific location. What does the note say? If you look carefully here, the context given is that the house guest, your house guest, leaves you a note asking for directions. This is the context to a specific location. So, context, the guest is asking for directions to a specific location. And now it's asking, what does the note say? So that is our situation. And for our sample response, we have, où se trouve la banque? Where is the bank? Or where is the bank located? So this is indeed a question, obviously. So we have fulfilled the requirement of this specific situation. Let's move on. Some directed situations may require you to ask a question without explicitly telling you to do so. So you might look at a situation and it might not directly tell you to ask someone a question. That's basically what that is saying. Let's look at our first situation here. So this one is from 2017's past paper. Your mother wants an explanation for your failure to do a given task. What note does she leave you? So you will see that I have written a note below here. The phrase wants an explanation is what indicates that a question needs to be asked. Usually, when someone wants an explanation for a particular action or for something that has happened, they usually ask you a question so that you can provide them with an explanation. Now, let's look at our sample response. Pourquoi tu n'as pas fait la vaisselle? Why didn't you do the dishes? If you take a look back at what the situation was asking us to do, it says your mother wants an explanation for your failure to do a given task. I want you to pay attention to these words, a given task, because it doesn't specify what the task is, which means you can say whatever task it is that comes to mind that you can think about. Failure to do a given task, which basically means that you did not do it. So if you didn't understand this situation, this is basically what it's saying. Your mother wants an explanation. Basically, she wants you to tell her why for your failure to do a given task. Why you did not do something that you were asked to do. That's basically what this is asking you. What note does she leave you? So basically, in the note that she leaves for you, she's asking you, why did you not do such and such? I hope that is clear. So that is why for the response given here, pourquoi tu n'as pas fait la vaisselle was used because is a question used to ask why didn't you do or complete a task that was given to you. Pourquoi tu n'as pas fait la vaisselle? Why didn't you do the dishes? Let's move on. Now we're going to look at another situation from 2018's past paper. It says, your school is hosting an after-school activity for fifth formers. Write a text to your father in Montreal seeking his permission to participate in this activity. Remember, when you're doing directed situations, if I didn't say this before, let me say it now. The directed situations basically contextualize what is going on before it asks you to do a specific thing. So in this case, the context here is your school is hosting an after-school activity for fifth formers. That can be an after-school party, maybe it's a dinner, etc. Now the situation is asking us to write a text to your father in Montreal seeking his permission to participate in this activity. And the note that I have written below, it says the phrase seeking his permission is what indicates a question needs to be asked. Because if you're seeking someone's permission, you basically have to ask if you are allowed to do such and such, or if you can do such and such. So let's look at our sample response. Papa, est-ce que je peux aller à la fête de l'école, s'il te plaît? Daddy, can I go to the school's party, please? Simple response. This question is very specific to the school. And like that, the situation, the requirement for this situation has been fulfilled. Let's continue. All right, now we're going to be looking at give commands. If the situation requires you to give a command, then give the command. Pretty simple. It is vital to identify any words used in the scenario that may require the use of the imperative mood, which is use for giving commands. So the words instruct or instructions, advise or advice, invite or invitation, suggest or suggestion, remind or reminder, all fall under the category of commands. In other words, when you see any of these words in your situation, you're most likely going to have to use a command in your response. Okay, now let's look at our first situation. It says, your older brother, who usually takes you to school, leaves a note for you instructing you not to wait for him and give you a reason. What does the note say? So the context here is that the brother who usually takes you to school is leaving you a note or leaves you a note instructing you, here's that word, instructing you. Anything that is given as an instruction comes in a command form. So the instruction here, it says not to wait for him. So not only does it contextualize that he's instructing you, it's also contextualizing what the instruction he is giving you. And the instruction is not to wait for him. And in addition, it says, and give you a reason. What does the note say? So he's telling you not to wait for him, and he gives you a reason why he's telling you why not to wait for him. So that is the context of this particular situation. For our sample response, we have ne m'attends pas parce que ma voiture est tombée en panne. What this is don't wait for me because my car broke down. That was the instruction. So ne m'attends pas is the instruction. This part here. Ne m'attends pas. This is the instruction. Don't wait for me. Parce que, this is the phrase you use to introduce the reason. And the reason here is ma voiture est tombée en panne. My car has broken down. I hope that is clear. Let's continue and look at another example. Now, for our second situation, this is from 2017's past paper. It says, you are going to visit your uncle in Canada for Christmas. What advice does he give you about how you should dress? Now, we see that word there, advice, has been highlighted, which is one of the words that I would have mentioned earlier right here, among other words, which is usually an indication that you need to use the imperative. So the context here is you're going to visit your uncle in Canada for Christmas. So in other words, you're going to Canada for Christmas to visit so that you can visit your uncle. Now, the situation here is asking you, what advice does your uncle, does he, referring to your uncle, what does your uncle give you? What advice does your uncle give you about how you should dress? Let's take a look at our sample response. So here we have porte des manteaux, des gants et des écharpes. That means wear coats, gloves, and scarves. And this is the advice. I hope this is clear. Let's continue. Now, in the event that you don't remember how to use the command form, the imperative, whenever it is required, use il faut, tu dois, vous devez to write your responses, as they can be generally used in the same kind of situations. Before I continue with this, let me first explain that when you're using the command forms are usually, if you look at this here, for example, command forms are usually verbs that had been used in the present tense, but it does not have a subject. So for example, in English, if I say, you speak, we know this is the present tense because there's a subject and the verb directly after it indicates that it's a present tense. But if I remove the subject, it becomes a command. If I say speak, then it becomes a command. Do you understand? So in this case, for example, this word here, attends, right? If you say you wait in French, it will be tu attends. But if you want to give a command and just say wait, you're just simply going to say attends. Attends un moment, s'il te plaît. Wait a minute, please. I hope that is clear. It's pretty simple. All you have to do, if you know how to form the present tense, drop the subject and you have the command form. It's very simple. Now, continuing with what we've mentioned here with the use of il faut, tu dois, or vous devez. Let's look at the first situation. It says, your sister is in trouble with the principal. Write a text message suggesting 2 ways in which she can make up for what she has done. And this is from 2018's past paper. Okay, so now you see the word highlighted here, suggesting, which is one of the words that I would have mentioned earlier, that when you see this word, suggesting, suggest, or suggestion, you have to usually, when you see words like that, it's usually an indication that you need to use the imperative, or what we refer to as the command form. And what the context of this situation is, it says that your sister is in trouble with the principal, which clearly means she did something stupid or wrong. And you, for this situation, what this situation is requiring you to do is to write a text message suggesting 2 ways in which she can make up for what she has done. Now let's look at our sample response. Now what we have here is tu dois présenter tes excuses et nettoyer la salle de classe. You have to apologize. In French. It's very strange. How they say to apologize, they basically say literally to present your excuses. So to say to apologize, it's présenter des excuses. But in this case, you say tu dois présenter tes excuses. So you have to present your excuses. This is how you say this is how you say you have to apologize in French. So, tu dois présenter tes excuses et nettoyer la salle de classe and clean the classroom. So this is our sample response. So you have to apologize and clean the classroom. So these are 2 suggestions that you could use for your response. These are 2 possible suggestions that you can use for that response to fulfill the requirements of the situation. Let's continue. So we're looking at another situation here from 2019's past paper. It says, your father leaves a note for you reminding you to do a particular chore. What does the note say? So the context is your father leaves you a note. So imagine this. When I talk about leaves you a note, think about it like this. It's like your father sent you a message via WhatsApp. So let's think about it like this. Your father sends you a message via WhatsApp to remind you to do a particular chore. So this is the context. And what the situation wants to know is, what is that message saying? Okay? What is being said in that message? Let's look at our sample response. It says, il faut faire la vaisselle. You have to do the dishes. So this is basically what the reminder is going to be. If you do not remember how to use the imperative, you can use il faut faire la vaisselle. This is an alternative that you can use if you do not remember how to use the imperative. I hope that is clear. So guys, that's it. And I want you to know, as usual, resources will be created for your benefit and uploaded to my channel to facilitate independent studying in preparation for your exam. As you can see here, this video is one of those resources that has been created for your benefit and has been uploaded to my channel so that you can study independently. In other words, so that you wouldn't have to rely on anybody else preparing for your exam. So you don't necessarily have to go to your teacher and say, teacher, can you explain this to me? These resources that I'm providing for you are going to help you prepare for your exam so that you can do your own personal studying, okay? All right, special thanks to all the people who made and released these awesome resources for free, referring to the presentation template by Slides Carnival and photographs by Unsplash. Got to pick up Unsplash every time. Ok, guys. Merci pour votre attention et à plus.
No way.